Wang Lin put away the mountain soul and returned to the immortal mountain. Calmly, he said, "What I want to discuss with you is the exchange of this divine ability." The old man sneered and said, "Don't even think about it. You've already taken the thunder cauldron. Now leave." Wang Lin's gaze sharpened. He raised his right hand and pointed forward. Instantly, a black glow shot out, heading straight for the front. At the moment the black glow appeared, the old man immediately felt as if all vitality was being drained away from him. The black glow rushed out, heading toward the cultivation star in the distance, disappearing out of sight. However, the old man's divine sense closely followed the black glow, and he saw it land on a flat plain, causing the vegetation on it to instantly wither, turning into countless life forces that quickly flew out, surged out of the cultivation star, and entered Wang Lin's body. This divine ability is called Annihilation Finger, Wang Lin said calmly. The old man grunted and said, "If I hadn't reached the Yin deficiency stage, this technique might still have been somewhat impressive. But now, it's just a useless trinket." Although he said this, deep down he was shocked by the overwhelming power of this technique. What he valued was not the power of the technique itself, but the ability to absorb life force. Wang Lin raised his right hand again, and immediately, another strange black gas surrounded his fingertip. With a flick, the finger windswept forward, stopping in front of the old man. This divine ability is called Demon Transformation Finger. It transforms the celestial energy in the body into demonic energy. When used with the Annihilation Finger, the effect is even better. The old man stared at the black gas in front of him, pondering for a moment. He then raised his right hand and grabbed it. Immediately, he held it in his hand. After sweeping his divine sense over it for a while, he looked up at Wang Lin and slowly said, "I've heard that cultivators from Donglin Star are proficient in demonic energy techniques. So you are from Donglin Star? But even so, this divine ability is also useless." Wang Lin pondered for a moment. What Sima Nan had valued the most back then was the Netherworld Finger. Even if it had flaws, it couldn't be exchanged. Wang Lin's gaze flashed, and he slowly raised his right hand, saying, "The last divine ability I will show you is one I learned from a senior who had reached the Shattered Nirvana stage in the second step. If you still don't find it impressive, then we can end this discussion." The old man was stunned, his disbelief evident. Wang Lin's mind stirred, and the immortal guard puppet not far away immediately transformed into a golden streak of light, rushing toward the cultivation star. At the movement of the puppet, the old man's face darkened. After a while, the immortal guard puppet returned, holding a fierce beast in its hands. The beast looked extremely ferocious, covered in sharp spikes, and even had half a human arm hanging from its mouth, clearly having been eating when it was captured by the puppet. Wang Lin raised two fingers in the shape of a sword, preparing to use the Slaughter Immortal art, a technique he hadn't used in a long time. The countless killing intents he had gathered back then were all placed into the puppet and were eventually consumed during a battle. However, Wang Lin had a deep understanding of the Slaughter Immortal art. After all, he had been practicing this technique for over 100 years. Now, he focused his mind for a moment. With a flick of his finger, a sword chi shot out, heading straight for the fierce beast. As the sword chi entered its body, the beast let out a terrible cry. Its body rapidly withered away in the old man's widened eyes, eventually turning into a pile of bones. A gray gas drifted from the bones of the beast, wrapping around Wang Lin's finger. Wang Lin flicked his finger, sending the gray gas floating away. With a light tap, the gas immediately transformed into a seal and flew toward the old man. This divine ability is called the Slaughter Immortal art. The old man was moved. He raised his right hand and grabbed the seal. His divine sense quickly spread out, examining it carefully. The more he examined it, the more shocked his expression became, and by the end, his eyes nearly shone with light. With his cultivation, he could almost immediately see the power of the Slaughter Immortal art. The seal obviously possessed a certain defense mechanism, and the white gas had an offensive nature. Though it wasn't overwhelmingly powerful, this technique could clearly be used multiple times, accumulating over time. This seal was formed from the Slaughter Immortal art. It relies on slaughter to gain life force. The life force surrounds the body, forming a seal of life. The more seals there are, the stronger the defense. The senior who passed this technique to me once said that if 1,000,000 seals protect the body, even if the cultivation star collapses, the person would be unharmed. Wang Lin wasn't lying. These were the exact words of Tian Yunzi from back then. For the first time, hesitation appeared on the old man's face. Clearly, the Slaughter Immortal art had truly moved him. With his experience, he could tell that this technique was extraordinary and definitely not something an ordinary cultivator could possess. The claim that it was passed down by a shattered Nirvana cultivator seemed credible. However, his third eye technique was a family inheritance and couldn't easily be taught to outsiders. The origins of this technique were unclear, seemingly obtained by an ancestor from long ago. In theory, such a divine ability wouldn't belong to just one family in the Alliance star domain, but in the Luotian star domain, where family-based sects were the norm, each family would possess some inherited divine abilities. Therefore, such techniques wouldn't easily be stolen from them. Moreover, what is more important is that after their family obtained this divine ability, he was the first person to successfully cultivate it. Wang Lin waited for a moment, seeing that the elder was still hesitating. With a flick of his sleeve, he turned and stepped towards the Thunder Beast, saying, "Forget it, Dao friend. Since you are unwilling, we will end this matter here." As he spoke, the Thunder Beast beneath him turned into thunder radiance and shot into the distance, with the Immortal Guard puppet following closely behind. The vitality seal in the elder's hand collapsed at this moment, turning into gray mist that dissipated. Its dissolution seemed to stir waves in the elder's heart, as if the divine ability that should have been his had been taken away by someone else. Seeing Wang Lin's figure turning into thunder light and growing distant, the elder's expression changed. Gritting his teeth, he shouted, "Dao friend, stop. I will exchange the Slaughter Immortal Art, along with the Annihilation Finger and Demon Transformation Finger, for it." Wang Lin halted. The Thunder Beast, communicating with him, turned and flew back, stopping Tin Zhang in front of the elder. It snorted out lightning, and its eyes showed disdain. "I'll exchange it, old man. I'll exchange it, but you must promise that this technique will not be passed on to others." The elder gritted his teeth and said. Wang Lin nodded, no longer wasting words. He slapped his storage pouch and took out 3 jade slips, which he carefully filled with the details of the 3 divine abilities. He was not afraid of the elder going back on his word and threw them out directly. The elder caught them and took a quick glance. Despite maintaining his usual expression, inwardly, he couldn't help but admire Wang Lin's actions. He then took out a jade slip and recorded the third eye divine ability, tossing it to Wang Lin. However, he had something else on his mind. He intentionally left several flaws in it. If Wang Lin cultivated using this version, even if he succeeded, it would be fraught with great hidden dangers. Wang Lin received it, carefully examining it. His inner thoughts began to churn. He didn't hesitate to expend his own mental energy, using his current third eye state to observe it again. Immediately, he noticed the discrepancies but did not expose them, only nodding slightly. Looking at the elder, Wang Lin felt a bit guilty. After all, he had gained a huge advantage from this transaction. After a brief moment of hesitation, he cupped his hands and said, "Dao friend, the amount of slaughter chi should not exceed 100,000, or there will be danger. Farewell." After saying this, he immediately turned and left without looking back, his retreat unusually hurried. The elder froze for a moment, his face changing slightly. He glanced down at the jade slip in his hand and remained silent for a moment before turning and leading his clan members back to the cultivation star. He immediately entered seclusion, determined to cultivate quickly and reach the Thunder Immortal realm within a month. Wang Lin sat on the Thunder Beast's back, his face somewhat strange. He muttered to himself, exchanging these 3 problematic techniques for a divine ability that contains a trace of the third step is a bit much, a bit too much. Wang Lin smiled as he looked at the jade slip in his hand. The elder had treated this divine ability as nothing special, and even if he cared about it, it was to a limited extent. But to Wang Lin, this technique was extremely powerful, as it contained a trace of the aura of returning to the source. If Wang Lin had not seen the third step, he definitely wouldn't have been able to spot the potential of this technique. He suppressed his excitement and carefully examined the jade slip. He wasn't concerned about the mistakes the elder had left in it. As long as he was given enough time, he could reverse these errors. This was far easier than correcting the 3 previous divine abilities. The Thunder Beast moved at great speed, roaring through the starry sky, its destination being Wang Lin's cultivation star, Qiling. The cultivators on Qiling Star had just celebrated that the eccentric senior with peculiar habits who had occupied the area had finally left. However, only a few months later, they were immediately suppressed again, for that eccentric senior had returned. Within 1,000 miles of Hengyun Peak, it had once again become a forbidden zone, and no one dared to step a single foot in. Back on his own cultivation star, Wang Lin immediately seized the opportunity to study and correct the third eye divine ability, slowly attempting to master it. Half a month passed quickly. On this day, the sky was clear, windless, and cloudless, with a soft breeze that carried a slight warmth as it brushed against him. Wang Lin stood at the top of Hengyun Peak, holding the thunder cauldron in his hand. The cauldron was only the size of a palm, but it contained thunder radiance that made a crisp sound as it moved. On Wang Lin's forehead, a tiny fissure appeared faintly, emitting a red glow. At this moment, he looked quite strange. No one would believe that he was a righteous cultivator. There was an eerie aura around him. This strange sight was, of course, due to the fissure on his forehead. Not long after, the azure sky darkened as thunderclouds appeared abruptly. There had been no warning, and the bright sky that had just been blue became gloomy in an instant. Rumbles of thunder echoed within the clouds, while the thunder cauldron in Wang Lin's hand seemed to resonate, its thunder radiance growing even more intense. At this moment, a sudden bolt of lightning descended from the sky, aiming directly at Wang Lin. Wang Lin stared at the lightning, his eyes gleaming with a strange light. He knew that once the lightning struck the thunder cauldron, he would be drawn upwards, shattering the void and heading straight for the elusive thunder immortal realm. However, in that very instant, he put the thunder cauldron away. "This is immortal thunder," Wang Lin murmured, his eyes flashing even brighter. His next move, in the countless times the thunder immortal realm had opened, was unprecedented. As for why this was happening, no one knew. It seemed as though it had always been this way, and some great divine cultivators even tried to uncover the mysteries behind it. However, no matter how hard they investigated, they ultimately found no answers. Over time, no one sought the cause any longer. They simply knew that with the Thunder Cauldron, one could enter the Thunder Immortal realm. At this moment, on Qingling Star, the very instant Wang Lin put the Thunder Cauldron away, the descending thunder, thick with immortal energy, arrived in an instant. Even before the thunder reached him, its sound had already rumbled. Wang Lin's eyes gleamed with a strange light as his primordial spirit within his body surged wildly. Bolts of lightning raced through him, even spreading outwards, extending to the surrounding ground. At that moment, he seemed to control the very lightning. When the thunder finally arrived, Wang Lin's body shot out like a meteor, heading straight for the lightning. He opened his mouth and, without hesitation, swallowed it whole. It was as if he had swallowed a vast expanse of mountains and rivers. As he swallowed it, the winds and clouds shifted. It seemed as though the entire world darkened in that instant. The thunder, which had once illuminated everything, was consumed by Wang Lin. A series of booming sounds rang out. The initial thunderclap quickly turned into a muffled roar, emanating from within Wang Lin's body. His entire body shook, and the moment he swallowed the immortal thunder, he felt as though he had been struck by an ancient god's punch. His body, like a kite with its string cut, tumbled through the air, rumbling as it crashed into the ground. The moment his body hit the earth, intense lightning erupted from within him, spreading out in all directions, creating a thunderstorm in a circle with a radius of 10 miles. On the ground, only a deep pit remained. Wang Lin's body was forcefully driven into the ground by the thunder, his body flashing with lightning. His eyes were tightly shut as his primordial spirit furiously absorbed the power of the immortal thunder. Meanwhile, he quickly invoked the Thunder Essence Art, continuously drawing in the primordial energy from the immortal thunder. This scene resembled the thunder pool within the debris layer. Above, the thunderclouds reverberated with the sound of thunder, as if the majesty of the immortal realm itself did not allow for any challenge. After the guiding thunder descended, the clouds in the sky began to show signs of dispersing, slowly pulling apart. At this moment, Wang Lin, deep in the pit, suddenly opened his eyes, revealing intense electrical sparks in his gaze. There was even a hint of excitement. He licked his lips. The primordial energy within this immortal thunder was extremely rich, several times more concentrated than the lightning he had absorbed in the thunder pool. His primordial energy had already reached saturation, but after reaching the perfect nascent soul stage, some extra energy remained, altering his previous state of saturation. His body moved quickly as he burst from the ground, reaching into his storage pouch with one hand and retrieving the thunder cauldron. The moment the thunder cauldron appeared, the thunderclouds, which had been dissipating, suddenly froze, recondensing. Following that, another bolt of immortal thunder, carrying immense power, descended with a thunderous roar. Wang Lin laughed heartily and quickly put the thunder cauldron away again. Although the immortal thunder left him feeling sore and his primordial spirit struggled to bear the burden, the primordial energy within it was simply unimaginable. If any cultivator had witnessed Wang Lin's actions, they would have been dumbfounded. This behavior could only be described as madness. Devouring immortal thunder. The second bolt of immortal thunder crashed down. Wang Lin, floating in midair, activated his primordial spirit as lightning surged across his body. In an instant, as the thunder struck, Wang Lin did not hesitate. He charged forward again, swallowing it whole. A huge shockwave, reverberating across Qiling Star, echoed loudly. The earth seemed to tremble. Wang Lin's body crashed into the ground once again. This time, upon landing, he immediately sat cross-legged, his body trembling violently. There was no time for Wang Lin to absorb it before 2 bolts of lightning had fallen. The thunderclouds seemed to be struggling to bear the weight, rapidly dissipating at a speed several times faster than before. In the seated position, a blue light emanated from above Wang Lin's head. As this light appeared, it quickly transformed into a blue mist. From within the mist, Wang Lin's primordial spirit separated from his body. As his primordial spirit emerged, the thunder cauldron from his storage pouch quickly flew out, enveloped by the primordial spirit, infused into his body, shooting towards the sky. The rapidly dissipating thunderclouds released a few reluctant roars of thunder. Instead of dispersing, they began to reconsolidate, gathering all the clouds together. This time, however, the thunderclouds seemed to be filled with rage, and the immortal thunder they formed was far stronger than the previous 2. The thunder descended from the sky amidst a cataclysmic roar, and as it did, the thunderclouds above twisted and funneled into the heart of the lightning. From afar, it didn't look like thunder at all. Instead, it appeared as a giant vortex made of storm clouds, at the center of which loomed the third, powerful immortal thunder. A deafening echo rang out, and at that moment, not a single cultivator on Azure Spirit Star dared to release their divine sense. Even the common folk, including the bullies of the streets and the skeptics in the martial world, knelt in their homes like fervent seekers of the Tao, praying for protection from the celestial spirits. Wang Lin's primordial spirit hovered in the air, wide-eyed as he gazed at the majestic lightning descending. A bitter smile crossed his face. It seems I may have overdone it a bit. As the thunder crashed down, Wang Lin's primordial spirit flickered and elongated, transforming until it bore a resemblance to the primordial thunder dragon. With a roar directed at the falling thunder, Wang Lin's primordial spirit swallowed a portion of it, but not all. He consumed half, and then quickly retreated, pursued relentlessly by the raging thunder. His primordial spirit darted back to the ground in an instant. He tossed out the thunder cauldron, and his spirit slipped into his body through his head's celestial point. At that moment, Wang Lin abruptly opened his eyes and grasped the cauldron with his right hand. The pursuing thunder seemed to roar in frustration as it struck the thunder cauldron, and the massive vortex followed suit, simultaneously plunging down toward it. Within the cauldron, flashes of electricity sparked fiercely, their intensity so great that even Wang Lin, holding onto it, felt a tingling in his right hand. Even when holding lightning, he had never felt such a sensation, indicating that the thunder inside the cauldron had reached a terrifying level. At this moment, the thunder cauldron expanded beneath the rushing thundercloud vortex, spinning rapidly as it absorbed the celestial thunder. To an outside observer, it appeared as if the skies themselves were being drawn into the cauldron. If anyone were confused, they would immediately think that this cauldron was the ultimate treasure of the world, capable of absorbing heaven itself. In the blink of an eye, the colossal vortex, moving at a frantic pace, merged entirely into the thunder cauldron. As the vortex dissipated from Azure Spirit Star, cracks suddenly appeared in the cauldron, accompanied by a series of snapping sounds. This was the first time a crack had appeared in the thunder cauldron since the establishment of the Thunder Immortal realm. Such a phenomenon had never occurred before. The number of cauldrons had always been fixed. They did not collapse, nor were they lost. Each time the Thunder Immortal realm closed, the cauldrons seemed to descend from nothingness and return to it, maintaining the same number upon their next appearance. But now, it seemed everything was about to change. Wang Lin smiled wryly. He felt that he may have truly gone too far. If the Thunder Cauldron were to collapse, he wasn't sure what impact it would have on his ability to enter the Immortal realm. It shouldn't collapse. After all, the cauldron belongs to the Thunder Immortal realm. At that moment, in the midst of Wang Lin's dazed gaze, the cauldron absorbed all the thunderclouds, and its cracks multiplied until it finally shattered. A thunderous roar echoed throughout the heavens and the earth, creating a storm of lightning that detonated across Azure Spirit Star. The thunder cauldron exploded into countless fragments, each piece linked by arcs of lightning. Wang Lin let out a sigh of relief, thinking that as long as the fragments remained, there was still room for reconciliation. However, just as they scattered, another collapse occurred. This time, it was the fragment's destruction. Instantly, they turned to dust. Since the Thunder Immortal realm began, this was the first cauldron to collapse. From this day forth, even if the Thunder Immortal realm opened countless times, one fewer cauldron would forever be lost, forever diminishing the number of entrants. In the countless years to come, such an event had never happened, and no one knew what might follow. The Thunder Cauldron was originally indestructible. Even those who had entered the second step of cultivation found it extremely difficult to destroy. Even if someone could achieve it, they would not commit such an act that would not only bring no benefit to the Thunder Immortal realm but have a severely detrimental impact on themselves. Wang Lin's wry smile deepened. At the moment of the cauldron's disintegration, the thunder contained within erupted with unimaginable force as a massive roar exploded forth, surrounding Wang Lin entirely, along with the fragments of the cauldron, spiraling skyward at blinding speed. The velocity was so intense it felt as if it could tear his flesh apart. While others entering the Thunder Immortal realm carefully carried their cauldrons and crossed the void at a gentle pace, Wang Lin, with a cauldron that had absorbed the entire descending thundercloud, experienced speeds that far exceeded anyone else. In almost an instant, this thunderous roar, which could only be described as madness, shattered the void and swept King Lin away, disappearing between heaven and earth. The speed was beyond description, as if time itself had been blurred in an instant. After breaking through the void, in this space clearly different from the starry sky, King Lin couldn't even see anything around him, and in a flash, he was gone. On the road leading to the gates of the Thunder Immortal realm, at this moment, many cultivators from the Luotian star domain had gathered. They came from all directions of the Luotian star domain, and instead of flying on their own, their bodies were automatically drawn toward the Thunder Immortal realm's gates, waiting for the door to open. All that could be seen, apart from the thunder radiance emanating from themselves, was a vast expanse of blackness, monotonous and desolate. But just at that moment, a thunderbolt, resembling the aurora, streaked across the sky with a fierce howling sound, like a shooting star, rushing toward them. This thunderbolt, moving at an incredibly fast speed, was almost incomprehensible. In an instant, it passed by several cultivators, causing the thunder radiance around them to flicker erratically, as though it might extinguish completely. These cultivators, all from the same cultivation star, were greatly shocked. But when they focused their eyes, all they could see was a brief flash of light at the far end of the void, and then it vanished without a trace. All that remained was the terror and confusion in their eyes. What was that? One of the cultivators muttered to himself. Within this thunderbolt-like meteor, King Lin could barely open his eyes due to the intense speed. His entire body felt like something was wriggling inside him, as if countless bumps and hollows were moving through him. He didn't even dare to release his divine sense. At such speed, if he attempted to extend it, his divine sense would immediately reach its limit due to the speed of his body, especially under such intense acceleration, which could damage his primordial spirit. His speed was so fast that this meteor-like thunderbolt was crashing wildly within the space leading to the Thunder Immortal realm's gates, as though driven by madness. Some cultivators, who were visiting for the first time, had initially been excited and calm as they were being drawn toward the gate of the Immortal realm. But then, they immediately saw this terrifying meteor. One by one, their expressions froze, and in a daze, they seemed to lose their sense of direction. Even those who were typically deep in thought, hiding their emotions, were left dumbfounded. Some cultivators, not being their first time entering the Thunder Immortal realm, still froze in shock when they saw the meteor flash by them or in the distance. Their expressions turned uncertain and bewildered. In such an environment, few dared to release their divine sense. And even if they did, they would never be able to lock onto that fast-moving meteor. What exactly was inside this thunderbolt? This became the first question in the minds of most cultivators who saw the meteor before entering the Thunder Immortal realm. At the end of this void space was the gate to the Thunder Immortal realm, but the gate of the Thunder Immortal realm was a thunderbolt so vast that, although it appeared as a single strike, its end could not be seen. The color of this thunderbolt was dark red. It appeared from the void and merged into the void on the other side, like a flowing river. However, at this moment, it had already lost all vitality, as though it had reached the end of its life, like the end of a human's journey. In the Luotian star domain, there were many legends about this thunderbolt, with one of the most widely accepted saying that originally, the Thunder Immortal realm had no gate. It was entirely surrounded by a vast sea of thunder, and thus, there was no need for a door. The dark red thunderbolt was said to be the transformed soul of the entire immortal realm when it collapsed, and this, in turn, became the gate in later generations. At this moment, Under the dark red thunderbolt, several individuals were sitting cross-legged in the void, quietly waiting for the Thunder Immortal realm to open. Xun'er was one of them. Among them, apart from the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary, were several rare solitary cultivators from the Luotian Star Domain. In a place like the Luotian Star Domain, where families dominate as sects, solitary cultivators were extremely rare. Without exceptional cultivation, it was nearly impossible to survive. Almost every solitary cultivator was an extraordinarily powerful figure. The people beneath the gate of the Thunder Immortal realm rarely spoke to each other. Sitting cross-legged, they closed their eyes in meditation, seemingly unwilling to be disturbed by others. Occasionally, a few cultivators would be drawn from afar by the thunder radiance. Those who arrived first were often cultivators who had reached the second step of cultivation. If there were familiar faces, they would exchange a few polite words, or sit nearby, but then quietly choose a spot on their own after the pleasantries. Next to Xun'er, there sat a middle-aged cultivator, wearing a blue robe, his face pale with no trace of blood, yet his eyes contained a cold, eerie glint. I've heard that the usually arrogant Xun'er now has a master. At first, I didn't believe it, but seeing it now, Brother Shin, your Dao soul is incomplete. It seems the transmission was true. What a pity, what a pity, the middle-aged cultivator said with a strange tone, slowly speaking. Xun'er's expression remained unchanged as he coldly glanced at the middle-aged cultivator and replied indifferently. How could a swallow understand the ambition of an eagle? A weak man can never fathom the heart of a swan. Tang Yifeng, you are not me. The man named Tang's eyes flashed with cold light, and he smiled darkly. I do wish to see what kind of ambition the eagle and the swan truly have. Xun'er fell silent instead of speaking further. Over the past 20 years, he had borne immense pressure from his family, and pressure from the Thunder Immortal Palace. All of this was because he had aligned himself with Wang Lin. Within his family, his hasty decision had been met with reproach. Although Xun'er was an emissary of the Thunder Immortal Palace, he still could not resist the elders of his family. As for the Thunder Immortal Palace, they had begun to show disapproval of an emissary who had attached himself to another. Although they hadn't openly voiced it, Xun'er could sense the growing estrangement. For example, with his talent, he should not be here at this moment. Instead, he should have entered the Thunder Immortal realm along with most of the other emissaries, using a different method. Though there were other emissaries here, none of them were in a position or of a status that could compare to his own. Thinking of this, Xun'er felt no regret. On the contrary, a strong sense of pride surged within him. He did not believe he had made a mistake. In fact, he felt that this decision was the most correct one of his life. The words Tang Yifeng had spoken were actually the very same words he had directed at the elders of his family. Even the clan's grand elder has remained stuck at the pure nirvana stage for years, unable to advance. As for that mythical third step, it's nothing more than an illusion. What right do they have to instruct me on how to live my life? A sharp glint flashed in Xun'er's eyes. Tang Yifeng sneered. Xun'er was the first in their generation to become an emissary of the Thunder Immortal Palace. Yet now, because of a single wrong move, he had ended up in such a predicament. At that moment, suddenly, a bright light appeared in the distance within the void. In an instant, thunderous sounds, like a storm, rushed toward them. In the blink of an eye, every cultivator in the area opened their eyes and looked up. Tang Yifeng was no exception. The moment their gazes met, the light suddenly expanded and shot directly toward them, the deafening thunder growing louder. The light, like a meteor, approached at an unbelievable speed. It was so fast that before they could even lock onto it with their divine senses, the meteor-like lightning had already arrived with a massive impact, forcing the onlookers to focus even harder. Even in the midst of the shockwave, the meteor-like lightning showed no sign of slowing down. It didn't pause as it would under normal circumstances, but instead, it sped up, shooting past them in the blink of an eye and heading straight for the entrance of the Thunder Immortal realm. In the stunned silence of everyone, the lightning-like meteor suddenly collided with a huge dark red thunderbolt. A muffled rumble echoed, and the meteor-like lightning disappeared into the dark red thunderbolt. Did it go in? One of the cultivators stood frozen in shock. Not just him. Nearly everyone around them immediately stood up, staring intently at the thunderbolt door. They had never heard of anyone entering the Thunder Immortal realm before the door opened. This defied their imagination. Tang Yifeng stood dumbfounded, murmuring to himself, "What is this? How could it enter before the door even opened? Could it be that one can enter before it opens?" He furrowed his brow. It wasn't just him who thought this. Many others had the same question, though no one dared to try. Except for one person. This person suddenly moved, and a clone emerged from his back. With a wave of his finger, the clone stepped forward, transforming into a rainbow and heading straight for the dark red lightning. The onlookers immediately followed the movement with their eyes. As soon as the clone touched the dark red lightning, it trembled, and with a speed visible to the naked eye, it rapidly disintegrated. At the same time, a dark red lightning bolt split from within and shot straight toward the cultivator who had sent the clone. The cultivator's face changed drastically. Though his cultivation had reached the deficiency stage, he felt a chill run down his spine in the face of that lightning. His soul seemed to leave his body as he quickly turned to flee. However, the lightning chased him relentlessly, flashing in an instant to catch up, entering his body and then flying back out after circling inside. The cultivator shuddered, and his body, along with his nascent soul and storage pouch, his entire existence, collapsed. Silence. All the cultivators around them went completely still. No one noticed that, at this moment, Xun'er lowered his head, his eyes filled with deep shock and indescribable excitement. Within the meteor-like lightning, due to the Dao Soul, he had sensed a trace of a master's aura. Xun'er was not wrong. The senior is truly an expert. The guiding thunder has reached such a level, and can even enter the thunder immortal realm before it opens. Such cultivation is truly beyond imagination. In the yet-to-be-unsealed thunder immortal realm, on a collapsed fragment continent, atop a mountain entirely black and teeming with countless raging bolts of lightning, stood a solitary figure at this moment. The figure was an elderly man, his white hair flowing gracefully, swaying with his broad robes. He stood with his hands behind his back, furrowing his brow as if in deep thought. But suddenly, he paused, turning to look into the distance, letting out a soft hum of surprise. Interesting. A look of curiosity spread across the old man's face. As the wind blew, his body disintegrated into countless crystal-like points, vanishing from the Thunder Mountain. If Wang Lin were here, he would immediately recognize that, as the old man disappeared, a faint aura of returning to one's origin could be felt. It seemed as though a mad dragon flowed into Wang Lin's body. In the blink of an eye, his entire body went numb, and even his nascent soul was locked down by the lightning's pull. This phenomenon happened so fast that Wang Lin had no time to react. In an instant, his entire body shook, as if struck by an immobilization spell. Under the impact of the meteoric thunder, his body was sent straight into the thunder immortal realm. He couldn't even see what was around him. The thunder meteors that engulfed him, now moving at an even greater speed, crashed down like celestial stones falling from the heavens, producing a thunderous rumble as they landed on a broken piece of land in the thunder immortal realm. The meteors shattered the air and struck the earth, raising a storm that surged outward. For a moment, the fragment continent became shrouded in dust, and visibility dropped to less than 10 feet. The earth trembled violently, like an earthquake. After a long while, as the dust storm cleared, the land slowly settled. Only on the eastern side of this land, the presence of a deep sky pit marked the reality of what had just occurred. Streams of blue smoke drifted up from the pit, dissipating with the wind. Around the pit's edge, streaks of lightning flickered, and there were even patches of scorched earth. The sky pit was exceedingly deep, its exact depth unknown. But at its bottom, Wang Lin lay, blood streaming from his 7 orifices, his body battered with multiple injuries, in an utterly miserable state. Although the Thunder Immortal Realm was more stable than the Rain Immortal Realm of old, it was still on the verge of collapse, just a difference of 50 paces versus 100 paces. After experiencing the massive impact of the lightning meteors, this fragment continent had become even more unstable. The sky pit where Wang Lin had landed collapsed shortly after its formation, accompanied by muffled rumbling sounds, and dust flew in all directions. When it finally settled, the ground was reduced to a wasteland, and the sky pit was completely buried. A white-haired elder appeared, seemingly out of thin air, and stood where the sky pit had been. He looked down at the site with a light chuckle, saying, "I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I've seen someone so greedy, actually entering the Thunder Immortal Realm this way." The elder's gaze sharpened as he looked closely, murmuring, "The boy's nascent soul contains thunder might, and even his physical body is made of lightning. What a mess. Is he cultivating as a human or a spirit? At this rate, he'll turn into a thunder spirit. But the place he landed is rather interesting. Well, since I've seen him, it must be fate. The elder's eyes sparkled with interest as he raised his right hand, casually pressing down. Instantly, a ray of light swept across the land, and the elder's body flickered, disappearing without a trace. In his life, few were destined to cross his path, and those who did always met unfortunate ends. Time passed slowly, and deep underground, Wang Lin slowly opened his eyes. Intense pain surged through his body, and even his nascent soul was having trouble functioning. Wang Lin gave a bitter smile and looked around. He was in a collapsed stone chamber, with some soil still falling from above. After observing for a moment, Wang Lin struggled to sit cross-legged, forming hand seals and closing his eyes to regulate his breathing. As he slowly circulated his nascent soul, he immediately noticed a strand of lightning energy within him that didn't belong. This energy was the key to his nascent soul's instability. The surroundings were completely silent, without a sound. As Wang Lin breathed in and out, his body was immersed in the process. Behind him, his immortal guard puppet appeared, sitting across from him with vigilant eyes, guarding him. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Wang Lin opened his eyes and exhaled a deep breath, expelling the lingering thunder energy. Never again should I take such risks. Fortunately, there isn't much of that lightning energy in my body, or else it would be hard to rid myself of it in a short time. With the lightning energy cleared, Wang Lin's injuries began to heal, and his nascent soul recovered. His physical body still bore some damage, but it didn't affect his cultivation. Wang Lin stood up and looked at the soil above him. With a single step forward, he plunged directly into the earth. Since I've entered the Thunder Immortal realm, I should take a good look and see how it differs from the Rain Immortal realm. As Wang Lin transformed into a streak of light, the moment he hit the soil above, a flash of light appeared on the ground. Wang Lin felt as though he had collided with an iron wall. In the deafening sound of a crash, his body swayed and was violently bounced back. Landing on the ground, Wang Lin took several steps back, his eyes filled with shock. This soil contains the energy of heaven and earth. Wang Lin took a deep breath, his eyes flashing like lightning as he scrutinized the area. His expression immediately darkened. It's not natural heaven and earth energy, it's been enhanced by some divine ability. Someone doesn't want me to leave. A cold glint flickered in Wang Lin's eyes. When he had fallen into the meteor thunder earlier, though he was injured, he had still sensed something when he hit the ground. The ground had been much harder than the outside world, but it hadn't blocked the penetration of divine abilities. But now, this soil had undergone a strange transformation, making Wang Lin immediately suspicious. Did someone cast a spell, or is it due to the intense thunder radiance that caused this abnormal change? Wang Lin pondered for a moment. With a flick of his mind, his immortal guard puppet immediately flew up, changing direction to try multiple spots within the secret room. However, except for directly ahead, none of the other directions, up, down, left, right, or behind, were passable. Wang Lin's expression grew darker. He was almost certain this was something done by a person. Clearly, someone had noticed his presence and confined the area, leaving him only one path, clearly and forcefully telling him that the only way forward was straight ahead. Wang Lin fell silent. His healing had taken several days, and he had no idea whether the Thunder Immortal realm had fully opened, making it impossible to judge the identity of the one who cast the spell. However, to be able to confine a place in the Immortal realm, this person's cultivation must be impressive. But why would they want me to go forward? Given their power, they shouldn't need to do this. If they were hostile, they could have attacked directly. Wang Lin thought to himself, his gaze flickering as he looked at the hole that the immortal guard puppet had punched in the wall when trying to find a way out earlier. Forget it. Staying here is useless. I'll go take a look and see what's so strange about it. Wang Lin's eyes gleamed coldly as he slapped his storage pouch, instantly producing a gleaming immortal brush in his hand. Holding the brush, the strange fissure in his forehead emitted a faint red glow, giving him an eerie appearance. He made a gesture with his right hand, and a surge of immortal power burst forth, transforming into a strange wind that blew the soil ahead, causing it to scatter like it was struck by a storm, revealing a passage. Wang Lin's divine sense entered the passage. It twisted and turned, containing countless paths leading who knows where. His divine sense split into many and reached into them, but it never reached the end. After pondering for a moment, Wang Lin's body swayed and he rushed forward. As he walked, his divine sense spread out, searching for an exit. He also attempted to use divine abilities to break through the earth at different spots, but every time, there was a magical seal preventing him from breaking through. While walking, his eyes suddenly narrowed. His divine sense detected a fork in the path ahead, where he found an exit. Wang Lin's speed suddenly increased, rushing toward the exit. However, he was a bit confused, because the process of finding this exit seemed too easy. Could it be that this isn't a divine ability caused by a person, but rather an anomaly caused by the thunder? Wang Lin thought deeply, his pace slowing slightly. Just then, the exit he had been monitoring with his divine sense flickered with light. The moment the light vanished, the exit disappeared without a trace. Wang Lin's body froze, his expression growing even darker. He was silent for a moment before snorting coldly and continuing forward. Not long after, he arrived at the location where the exit had been. He examined it carefully for a long time without speaking, then turned and changed direction, walking toward another fork in the path. His divine sense continued to spread, meticulously observing every intersection of the paths. Half an hour later, his divine sense detected another exit. Beyond it, he saw a gray sky and flashes of lightning clearly. This led to the surface. Without hesitation, Wang Lin rushed toward the exit. His speed was incredibly fast, ignoring the fact that he couldn't use teleportation here. After a few quick steps, he arrived at the exit. When he was just 10 zhang away, he surged forward. However, at that moment, a flash of white light flickered from the exit, and it disappeared instantly. Wang Lin struck the air, clenching his fist in frustration. His expression was as dark as ever. He lifted his head, his gaze piercing as if it could see through the earth. After exhaling deeply, he turned and walked away. This place must be a divine ability created by someone. Wang Lin thought grimly as he sped through the endless corridors. He had let go of his earlier urgency. Clearly, these exits were being controlled by someone who wanted him to see them but not actually leave. If he were to panic and let his emotions run wild, trying to escape, it would only make it harder. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Thunder Immortal realm, a white-haired old man stood with his hands behind his back, a smile on his face as he muttered to himself, "It's been a long time since I met a young one who's destined to cross paths with me." Well, if you can get out in 7 days, it means you're even more destined. I really hope this little one makes it out within 7 days. That would be interesting. There are many places in this Thunder Immortal realm that are perfect for someone like you, a person of destiny. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Within the underground passage, Wang Lin moved like lightning, his divine sense extending outward. Every half an hour or so, he would come across an exit. However, he never bothered to take it. Instead, he continued his journey, wandering and exploring further. After 3 days, he had traversed every passage in the area. As a result, a complete map of the place had formed in his mind. And with that, he had also discovered the way to leave.